Meanwhile, Pakistan is the butt of jokes further today after Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's sorry attempt at aping Indian Prime Minister by visiting allegedly bases that were struck by India. Images show nothing of significance except for an outdated military that is showing off its tanks in the age of drone and air defense systems. Focus is rightly on Pakistan's nuke weapons now. India is not only putting pressure on financial watchdogs, but also on the nuclear watchdog, while emphasizing again that India will not be blackmailed by the Pakistan nuclear bogey. But first, let me give you a sense of the pictures that emerged from the Indian Prime Minister's visit to the Adampur base yesterday and what Shehbaz Sharif, the Pakistani Prime Minister, tried to do when he tried to copy the Indian Prime Minister, making a very poor attempt. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived at this airbase that was used during India's strike. Pakistan and Pakistani military had claimed that they have hit this Adampur Air Base. Shehbaz Sharif's video doesn't really specify an airfield location. There isn't much to tell you exactly where he is, while the Indian Air Base was absolutely clear. One could only see some choppers stationed at a distance behind him. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in fact landed at the Adampur Air Base in the C-130 Hercules, making it amply clear that the airstrip was very much intact and usable. But on the other side, there was no visuals of Shehbaz Sharif landing at the airstrip. Instead, he was only shown arriving in a jeep. Not sure what the significance of that could be in the international media. Now, the Indian PM was also pictured with the S-400 and the MiG-29 in close proximity, demonstrating that they were very much intact. Shehbaz Sharif addressed Pakistani soldiers in a plain field with a flex sheet behind him and in a backdrop that had tanks that had absolutely no role to play as far as the current conflict is concerned. It is now clear that Pakistan threatened to use its nukes against India and escalated the situation in front of the world so that they intervened because India was pummeling it so bad. A lot of speculation was created over whether India hit a nuke storage site in Kirana Hills. Now, the Indian Air Force had already rejected it, and now the International Atomic Energy Agency has also clarified that there was no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan during the hostilities with India last week. Now, these nuclear theories also gained traction because of what US President Donald Trump had been claiming. He claimed that he averted an India-Pakistan nuclear war. In his very first tweet, he talked about how millions of deaths could have taken place had he not intervened. He then said that he used trade to avert a nuclear war. But this grandstanding was revealed to be just that India did not escalate the situation. Instead, it was Pakistan that got rattled and very clearly threatened to do something which is not against their nuclear policy, by the way. And that is what alarmed the likes of Donald Trump and others. But it brings us to the important point, just as Rajnath Singh, Defence Minister, pointed out earlier today. Global powers have played a dubious history in ignoring Pakistan's nuclear armament. American geopolitics interests meant that during the 1980s, they overlooked Pakistan's nuclear progress as the latter was a key ally in the US-backed Afghan jihad against the Soviets. US law required sanctions if Pakistan develops nukes, but enforcement was delayed until 1990 after the Soviet withdrawal. Beijing allegedly provided Pakistan with those nuclear designs and missile technology. The West avoided confronting China at that time due to economic and diplomatic considerations. Even Europe's weak export controls allowed AQ Khan's network to procure critical components. European governments failed to act decisively despite intelligence reports. All of this because actually these countries saw Pakistan's nukes as a counterweight to India's. We focus on not just Shehbaz Sharif's visit to the army base in Pakistan or wherever he was, plus the question about Pakistan's nukes. All of these narratives are reeling under India's might today.
भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की
पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद,
पाकिस्तान
जिंदाबाद। पाकिस्तान के एटमी हथियारों को IAEA इंटरनेशनल एटॉमिक एनर्जी एजेंसी की निगरानी में लिया जाना चाहिए।
Time to check Pakistan's nukes. I want to go across to our guest joining us on the same, Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, former DGMO, Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, Adjunct Distinguished Fellow, National Security and former member of the NSAB, Brigadier Arun Sehgal, Senior Fellow of the Delhi Policy Group, Sanjay Panda, former Ambassador to Turkey from India, Shalini Chawla, Distinguished Fellow, Center for Air Power Studies, all joining us on the show. Lieutenant General Narasimhan, I want to begin with you. How do you look at Rajnath Singh, none other than him, the Defence Minister, putting the focus on Pakistan's nukes today?
Then thank you for getting me onto your show. 2 points I would like to mention on this. First point is that for the last about 15, 17 years, Pakistan has been doing this nuclear blackmail with us. That we have got nuclear weapons and so you can't do anything to us kind of a behavior. I think that was called out during Operation Sindoor. And not only Operation Sindoor, 2016, 2019 and 2025, all 3 times it has been proved that there is a window before the nuclear threshold that can be utilized. That is point number 1. Point number 2, even in this Operation Sindoor, there has been, the moment we went near their nuclear establishment, they actually raised the white flag.
Yes.
So the problem that comes up is that they are actually worried about their nuclear weapons and their usage, and they have a they have a first use policy. They don't have no first use policy. They have the other way around. And so I think putting all this together, there was always a worry that these nuclear weapons can fall into the wrong hands in Pakistan. Though of course they'll be protected well, we have no doubts about that. But there is always a possibility of that getting into the hands of the undesirable elements is something that was actually talked about. The thing is, that is one of the reasons I think the defense minister has gone on record to say that the nuclear weapons of Pakistan should be get under the supervision of the IAEA. I think this is the way I think you need to see this.
No, but do you think that this is a more aggressive stance than what has been taken by India officially in the past, that there is clearly a change of tact as far as India is going about it?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. In fact, we have been very clear in saying this. In fact, Prime Minister in his address to the nation also mentioned the days of the nuclear blackmail are over. And I think this is a very, very positive and a very, very powerful stance that we are actually pushing for. And if these weapons come under the supervision of the IAEA, that will be exactly good for not only for us, not only for Pakistan and for the entire world.
Yes. Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think what did transpire was that India was pummeling, Pakistan's air bases, and some of them were very close to their nuclear storage sites or whatever you want to call them. And they created an alarm because their nuclear policy is very clear. One is to deter India from ever fighting a war with them. Second is to not allow India to win in conventional war if it ever breaks out. So I think my understanding is that they're the ones who created this nuclear frenzy, speaking to the Americans and others, forcing them to intervene, and that is why those statements from Donald Trump also came out. Do you think that actually doing that from Pakistan should tell the global powers, including America, that they're actually dealing with a very unstable, rogue country that will not think twice just to not have a conventional war loss? They may tomorrow use nukes or threaten to use nukes. They do this all the time. Don't you think Americans and others should wake up to how rogue Pakistan is?
So one has to look at Pakistan and what it has been doing till now. They have been using the lowest end of the spectrum, that is using terrorists as strategic weapons, while on the other hand, always using the nuclear bogey. This is the first time that the present government under the Prime Minister called the bluff. And that is why when Pahalgaon happened, we have gone to the terrorist camps, to the terrorist infrastructure, and effectively destroyed it. And the escalation has also been raised to a level where their airfields were attacked, including the one at Sargodha. This was a clear message to Pakistan that their nuclear bluff will not work. And the adequate amount of measured surgical punishment was given to Pakistan. So one thing is very clear with the way the escalation took place and how we controlled it, that nowhere were we looking at targeting anything to do with nuclear. That should be very clear. Sargodha was one of the airfields India has addressed. It is not because it is close to a nuclear facility. And that was very clear from the DGAO's briefing, which happened a few days back.
But my question is, what about the message that countries like US should take? I mean, if Donald Trump is saying that actually there was alarming intel and he's the one who has averted a nuclear war, shouldn't they also come to the realization of the country they're dealing with? This episode should tell them how unstable Pakistan is.
Definitely, that irresponsibility of a nation which has a nuclear bombs with it is alarming for the whole world. And the world has to pay attention to it and try to take all measures to ensure that rogue nations do not have nuclear weapons or they are controlled by somebody else.
Mr. Panda, do you think the international community will take notice of it, or there are just too many geopolitical concerns which have allowed countries like Pakistan to become nuclear armed in the first place that will always, play these dirty tricks and dirty politics?
Shivani, one thing is very clear. The way Pakistan became a nuclear power, the AQ Khan, the entire, the manner in which the things, it was procured and the way Pakistan became nuclear. So IAEA should have been absolutely taken Pakistan, and it should have been on IAEA's radar right from the word go. Pakistan has been using this, nuclear bluff for quite some time. And I can assure you, there are many takers, whatever we may say in international community. What I feel extremely irritated about when US and other powers, when they talk about a nuclear India and nuclear Pakistan, how can you equate the two countries? One is a responsible nuclear power, the other is you do not know, who has the controls there. But having said that, nuclear war cannot be won, and they are aware of it. If Pakistan chooses to, there was a statement even before this conflict started. They said that we will do anything that it takes,
yes,
including using conventional and nuclear options. Now, these are very irresponsible statements. So, which is what the international community should be worried about. And the very fact, even President Trump, when he uses this term, nuclear, he averted a nuclear war. I mean, that puts Pakistan and India in the same footing, which is what is really of concern.
Yes.
And which is what we should address.
No, which has certainly rankled a few people in India. I'm not sure if Brigadier Arun Sehgal is with me. Can I go across to him? Sir, if you can hear me, I want to get your sense on...
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, yes.
Thank you so much. I want to get your sense on the Defence Minister's statements today, putting the focus on Pakistan's nuke and how unreliable the country is, and how best forward India can put pressure on the international nuclear watchdog in this regard.
Madam, there are 2-3 issues involved. Number one, it's a good statement. It makes a good copy. But I don't think IAEA has any authority or any capacity to rein in Pakistan. Pakistan can only be reined in by a collective will of the people around the world, the powers that support him, and the powers that continue to build up his capacity. Pakistan is a rogue nuclear power which needs to be contained, but I do not think the Americans, the Chinese or the British have any interest in containing them. It's part of a larger geopolitical game in which Pakistan is being leveraged for different reasons, which I may not like to spell out openly in this thing. But the fact of the matter is that it's a rogue nation. The worst part we must remember is that Pakistani nuclear weapons are not under the control of the political establishment. The employment committee is only notionally headed by the Prime Minister. but actual control is of the National Command Authority, lies with the Army Chief and his minions who control the SPD, Strategic Plans Division of the Pakistan. So, while it's a good thing, it makes a good political point, but I do not think it has much substance.
Okay, I'll come back to you, sir. Just give me a moment. I have some breaking updates also coming in. And this is with regards to India's response to Pakistani allies as well. We're getting news that the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security has taken away or revoked the security clearance to Celebi Airport Services India Private Limited with immediate effect in the interest of national security. There are a total of 9 stations in India consisting of Mumbai, Delhi and others where this company was functioning, and it was granted to Celebi Ground Handling India Private Limited. That has been revoked. Remember, this is in context of this being a Turkish company, and more such action is now being taken. Yesterday, we had certain Indian universities that took action of cancelling their MOUs as far as Turkish universities are concerned. And now this Turkish firm's license to operate in very sensitive areas at airports in the country has also been revoked. In fact, I want to go across to Mr. Panda, who continues to be with us. Sir, how do you look at this? Certainly a lot of heat on Turkey.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Turkey, the way it has approached this issue, I mean, I've been saying this, it's a major strategic miscalculation for Turkey. There's so much at stake, but somehow President Erdogan has this bee in his bonnet that he needs to become the head of the Islamic world by reviving the Caliphate glory. And for that, he could go any length. What he doesn't realize that $10 billion trade is at stake, the investment is at stake, and there are many Turkish companies who are aspiring to, get involved in the infrastructure in India. Now, I won't be surprised if the MOU which is signed between it's a major rail project between Rail Vikas Nigam Limited and a Turkish company. I mean, that also could be reviewed. Yes. But having said that, so far as Jalebi is concerned, I mean, they have been in India for several years now, and they've been doing a great job. And interestingly, I mean, while I was in Ankara, I have had occasion to interact with Jalebi quite extensively. In fact, they had difficulty with the political leadership in Turkey. And they were always apprehensive of this happening. And this has indeed happened now. So I'm not surprised. And I think even the Turkish companies could be debarred from participating in Indian projects for on security grounds. So it's very important to do this messaging so far as Turkey is concerned. Yeah. But we have to be very careful in seeing that certain moves, it's not that, there's a big campaign which is going on ban Turkey. That doesn't help really, because we do have diplomatic relations. There is an embassy, yes. We have to get into all that. So it's not that the government is going to do anything. I mean, it's most important to, have this messaging. It cannot be business as usual.
Cannot be business as usual. Certainly a message can be put, some pressure points can be pressed. My colleague Anvit is also joining us. Just give me a minute, my guest, so that I can go across to my colleague Anvit, who's also bringing us more. Anvit, what more are you learning on this?
So this was an order dated 15th of May and it has been issued with immediate effect, and the order reads that security clearance to Celebi hereby stands revoked with immediate effect in the interest of national security. Now this had been under speculation for past recent some time, and because it happens to be a Turkish company, and also because of the backlash that there has been, be it on social media or in person. And this all started after the online anger began, after Turkey, publicly it had criticized India's military strikes on terror camps in Pakistan and even in the POK region. And particularly it was on May 7th, when also the Turkish foreign minister, he also had issued a sharp statement warning that India's actions could lead to a wider war. And following that, there has been online backlash as well. Many of the tourists have also cancelled their plans of traveling to Turkey. So, and some flights also, we had also checked some certain airlines. They had also said that last moment cancellations have been reported in huge number. Other than that, there are also reports that the controversy it further escalated because Indian authorities had confirmed that drones shot down near the border were also found to be of Turkish origin. So that is another controversy that had taken place, following which a number of people have cancelled their tours to Turkey, and not just that, but many flyers have also reported that last moment cancellation with the airlines as well.
Yes, Tanvir, thanks a lot for joining us. Shalin Chavla, I'm coming to you. It's not so much the fact that you dealt arms to Pakistan. A lot of countries sell arms to other countries. It was more about the stand that Turkey has taken. In fact, earlier today, Azerbaijan, the other country that came out in full support of Pakistan, has once again reiterated that Azerbaijan and Pakistan are absolutely together, they are brothers, and so on and so forth. Do you think India should use its increased global position and weightage to send a message, not just to those who deal with Pakistan, they may have their own trade interests, but those who take a false equivalent position between India and Pakistan, or don't even condemn the terror that emanates from Pakistan?
Yes, you are right, because it was not, we have seen Turkey and Pakistan defense cooperation for very long, and last 4 years the cooperation had really gone up from, initial beginning we saw about Turkey refurbishing the F-16s, but then we saw Pakistan acquiring the equipment, and then Pakistan also talking about buying the Turkish 5th generation aircraft Khan. But what is obviously in this whole situation, what makes it the point for us, what we have taken position here, is not about the arms, as you said, but Turkey's position, where this was one of, I think, the two countries who actually condemned India's action.
Yes.
The word used was condemned. Even China did not use the word condemned, it used the word regret in its statement. So if you have this kind of blatant support, if you support Pakistan, obviously it's a full-fledged support to terrorism that you are extending. And then we have seen this, the whole mindset emerging under the new president, how he has been talking about a new alliance between Turkey, Malaysia and Pakistan. So this was something which was not surprising, but yes, we saw this coming, this kind of a posture in the crisis. And what we can do about it, yes, we should be using our position, whatever we can do within the country in terms of at least not having any, support to Turkey in any form in trade and the economic activities there. Certainly that expression of this anger and resentment, I think, is definitely going to be the right thing to do for India's posture.
And Shalini, what do you think has been the impact of India's superior air power that was demonstrated during Operation Sindoor, not just to Pakistan, but even other global powers? It seems very clear that India has not only, made a strategic intent clear, but it has also shown it has the military prowess to back it, to call off that Pakistani nuclear buff. They've certainly sent a message that if we want to tomorrow, we can incapacitate your nuclear capabilities.
I think the operation, the way it was carried on, the way the terrorist hideouts was, not the hideouts, the, network was struck, I think it required extreme precision and also intel, which was exercised, and it's quite admirable. And it has been applauded, though Pakistan has been on the narrative that they won the war, which was also very expected that they're going to do that. As far as our calling Pakistan's nuclear bluff, I'm glad you brought this point again to me. I think in this situation where we see the defense minister's statement, so 3 points are very important here. One is that how Pakistan acquired the nuclear weapons, that was through China and the network which was talked about. Second and very important part about the new Pakistan is how it projects its nuclear weapons.
Yes.
And you also talked about it, that its nuclear weapons are to counter a conventional war and not like India, which wants to exercise it to counter a nuclear attack.
Yes.
So it has an unwritten doctrine, it has a first use doctrine, and it also has often projected a very low nuclear threshold, that anything goes wrong, we're going to use it. And lastly, obviously, for decades we have seen that it has used it to conduct terrorism. From 1987 we have seen when they announced they got the nuclear weapons, and then we have seen during Operation Brass Tack at that time, then Operation Parakram, each time the threat has been used, but that doesn't work anymore. And why the country should not have it, I think for us the stance had to be, one is that how the country projects that it wants to use the nuclear weapon, where it keeps it completely ambiguous. Second part is that, is the country actually capable of handling it? The country which is going through so much of turmoil within, even in 2024, Pakistan had close to 500 terror attacks within, and large number of them were on the military assets. So how safe are these weapons there? More importantly, when Pakistan really thrives on the, on Nasser, which is the tactical nuclear weapon with a 60-kilometer range, which is extremely dangerous in a country which is full of, the terror activities which we see all over. So is Pakistan actually capable of handling the nuclear weapons and with this position? So I think our first is we have definitely called the nuclear bluff, and our position at the international level that, although I don't know how effectively we can actually challenge it and how effectively we can make this happen of Pakistan giving up the nuclear weapons, I don't see that happening.
No,
but
sure.
yes, raising our voice,
at least
that is
talking about it puts the focus on
Absolutely.
the body. In fact, Brigadier Arun Sehgal was also unsure of how much impact it will have. But Brigadier Sehgal, can I come back to you on just the shift in the policy of vocalizing the concerns? India hasn't done so in a long time.
Sorry, I didn't get your question properly, ma'am.
I'm saying just the shift that India is displaying of talking about it while not talking about it for a while. Do you think India is now willing to say things out loud which it was not doing for the sake of not ratcheting up any, troubles with Pakistan?
Yes, there are 2-3 things which are very relevant, which are coming out of this, our 4 days intense interaction with the Pakistanis in kinetic terms. One fundamental point is the Pakistani attempt to weaponize escalation has been effectively constrained. They used to weaponize escalation by throwing in this whole fear of nuclear order, and they're saying that things can, if they get out of control, we can cross the nuclear threshold. They used to posit shallow nuclear thresholds. And the third issue was that they had a great capacity and a capability of their nuclear command authority, which they felt that they had they could manage any type of escalation. What has happened in this case is 2 things. One is we have used kinetic power to purposely and intentionally decimate his Air Force assets and his strategic assets. Number 2, he did not feel, because we have not crossed the line of control or we have not crossed the international border, what we have done is we have given him a kinetic blow where it hurts. He did not feel it necessary till the 9th to talk about his nuclear command authority meeting. Earlier, if you remember Balakot, he got his NCA meeting on the first day indicating the nuclear red lines. And this case, he did not even do that, and when the reports came in, he immediately withdrew from them. So, the issue basically is that I feel there is a constraint and there is a little turmoil within the nuclear establishment in Pakistan, that it's stupidity to go the nuclear route. And I think there are some interesting voices within the establishment who do not want to escalate the situation in India. They realize the foolishness of it, and that is why I think this whole issue of trying to play the nuclear card was relatively low. Although now I find a lot of Pakistani scholars writing India and abroad that how the next round will be different, that we will see. But as of now, I think India has clearly deterred the deterrence card of the Pakistan.
But the Americans clearly fell for this. The Americans clearly fell for the nuclear bluff of the Pakistanis.
Sorry?
The Americans clearly fell for the nuclear bluff of the Pakistanis.
No. But Americans will never do it because there are larger geostrategic issues involved. I mean, there is a concept called the concentration of power and the leveraging of power. India is an emerging power with a strong capacity, strong capabilities. In 2035, we will have an economy of close to about $15 trillion. Strong economy backed up by strong capability, strong military power, asserting its influence in Asia and beyond. then we will be challenged. People look at these issues from a long range perspective. They don't look at it from tomorrow or day after. So in American perception of things, India is an emerging power which needs to be befriended, kept on the right side, but not an ally at any given time.
Yep.
So there will be levers used against us, there will be offers made to us, we will be made a good strategic partner, but never a good friend.
Yeah, and being America's friend is anyways fatal, isn't it? As a great man once said. But Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, I want to bring you in on this visit.
No, ma'am, I have to go. I have to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, I do want to talk to you about this visit that Shehbaz Sharif did to this so-called bases in Pakistan. How do you read at the pictures that emerged from there, and how do you contrast them to what they possibly wanted to tell the world and what could they achieve?
So, in fact, the whole charade does not require a comment. If you compare it with what our Prime Minister, who is genuinely the leader of the country, who has executive control, and who genuinely went to Adampur to meet the troops, and here is one man, most probably pushed by his bosses to come and walk there and do the charade. So it is just copycat to also say that we did something. The forces need to be appreciated, and by a man from whom they don't even take orders. So there are no comparisons. It's all right maybe for the domestic public. It is one charade they are creating.
But Lieutenant General Nasaman, do you think this will fool the international community at all, that has been very, very eager to take whatever Pakistan is dishing out and take it at its word?
Yeah, that we saw in the last 10-15 days, what you say, they were lapping it up initially when Pakistan claimed, we are down so many planes, so many this thing, etc., etc. But this one, analysts have already pointed out that it lacked imagination. I'm talking about Shehbaz Sharif's visit to the military bases. They have clearly indicated that it lacked imagination. It is a copycat kind of a reaction to what our Prime Minister did by going to the air base. So this is something which has already been condemned by many of the analysts. And I don't think it is for the international audience. I think it is for the Pakistan audience that he did this. Basically to say that he is in support with the troops, etc., etc. Like General Bhatt mentioned, it is very clear that they don't take orders from this gentleman. They take orders from General Asim Munir, who was standing just next to him as a toy kind of a thing. He was just trying to wave up. So the thing is, it was just put up a show for the local audience. I don't think they are trying to fool. They can fool anybody else in the international arena. I think people have seen through this entire charade, like General Bhatt mentioned.
Right. I just want to shift focus a little bit on the voices that are coming in from America. For example, Donald Trump has made another statement on how this time he says he helped, if not completely make it come about, the mediation or the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And also what Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has said today, reiterating the absolute red lines for India. Let's listen in.
Let me say this, that look, between India and US, trade talks have been going on, negotiations have been going on. In fact, we have, I think a team is just going at this point. These are very complicated negotiations, they are very intricate, nothing is decided till everything is. But any trade deal has to be mutually beneficial. Any trade deal has to work for both the countries, and I think that would be our expectation from the trade deal.
Right. Let's go across to our guests who continue to be with us. Sanjay Panda, you see this as a clear message to the US?
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to also tell you, Shivani, we shouldn't read more into what Trump says. President Trump, pardon me saying this, he's a loose cannon. He can come and say anything, but, we have our red lines which are clearly defined. When it comes to India, Pakistan, we do not want any third party meddling there or any third party intervention. So probably he has not been properly briefed. So that is how he comes about issuing statements. But of course, India, from the government's point of view, They cannot rebut and go up to, there are important trade negotiations going on and there's a lot at stake. So we have to send across some subtle message that look, these are the way how we proceed when it comes to India, Pakistan and other things. So please refrain from doing it without actually spelling it out in so many words. Now, Shivani, I wanted to also mention something. There is at the cost of repeating myself, India and Pakistan, now equating India and Pakistan is quite something which you see in the West and in the newspapers. You see New York Times, Washington Post, I mean, they love equating India and Pakistan. Look where we are, what is our international profile, I mean, our fourth largest economy and where Pakistan stands. In fact, I am appalled that we are giving so much of attention and camera footage to Pakistan in Indian televisions also or in the Indian media. They don't deserve it. So there are so many things which needs to be ignored. Major policy lines have to be defined and discussed and what our actions are. But Pakistan, there are several things which are happening which are meant for their domestic audience and we have to just ignore. And they don't deserve this attention actually.
Okay, but I do want to play out what S. Jaishankar has said vis-a-vis Pakistan. That was, of course, what he said about the trade deal being worked out with Donald Trump and the Trump administration. And there's a clear message, if Trump wants to use trade as some sort of a bargaining chip, that India is prepared to nullify that. But also what he said when it comes to Pakistan.
Talks with Pakistan. I think the Prime Minister made it very clear that the only talks with Pakistan will be on terror. That Pakistan has a list of terrorists who need to be handed over. They have to shut down the terrorist infrastructure. They know what to do. We are prepared to discuss with them what is to be done on terrorism. Those are the talks which are feasible. Water issues have been raised. Again, you all know, and I re-emphasize, the Cabinet Committee on Security and the government, obviously, was very clear that the Indus Waters Treaty is held in abeyance and will be continued to be held in abeyance until cross-border terrorism by Pakistan is credibly and irrevocably stopped.
Right. Let me also very quickly play out what US President Donald Trump said earlier today. This is his latest version of what he did between India and Pakistan.
I don't want to say I did, but I sure as hell helped settle the problem between Pakistan and India last week, which was getting more and more hostile. And all of a sudden you'll start seeing missiles of a different type. And we got it settled. I hope I don't walk out of here and 2 days later find out that it's not settled, but I think it is settled. And we talked to them about trade. Let's do trade instead of do war. And Pakistan was very happy with that, and India was very happy with that, and I think they're on the way. You know, they have been fighting for about 1,000 years, in all fairness, so they've been fighting for a long time. But we got that settled. Everybody was very happy, I'll tell you that.
All right. Everybody was very happy. Not really the correct assessment of the situation.
I'm very happy about that, Shivani.
Exactly. So, you know, I know where you're coming from, and I know that Trump's version can change both in the tone and tenor and even in the material weightage of what he's saying. It can change from day to day or even from time zone to time zone. But, you know, it has become a bit of a sticking point for India. And Shalini, I'm coming to you with this. One is the equating of India and Pakistan, which I think is the main issue that is bothering India. Some of the Pakistani allies would do it, that's fine, but we don't expect it from some others, particularly the US, that knows the history of the AFPAC region, that knows exactly what Pakistan is up to, that has suffered at the hands of the Pakistani jihadi military complex, and yet he goes on to say this. I just want to understand from you how to deal with this going forward. How should best India deal with this?
I think you are absolutely right, because for Pakistan, obviously, is a win-win if it is equated with India, because there are no parallels that can be drawn on any dimensions there. So, but yes, I think we have made a point very, very clear, Shivani. One is that what we want to deal with Pakistan. That statement from our minister is very powerful, because it is talking about continuation of our policy which we adopted in 2016 after the Pathankot attack. We have since then have no diplomatic dialogue with Pakistan, and we have continuously maintained that position that terror and talks will not go together. So it is more assertive now, and then we have talked that even with Pakistan is likely to make a lot of noise about the Indus Water Treaty, but it's only going to be terrorism that's going to be the main issue, and it will be bilateral, where he again and again he's emphasized this is going to be no third party there. And then with the United States, again that has been made clear that any trade deal is not owing to what behavioral change US can bring into Pakistan, because I don't think US has any capacity to bring that behavioral change, because even after giving $32 billion of aid, they found Osama bin Laden there. Yes. So I think US understands it, but I also realized sometimes that there is some kind of a strategic compulsion that it has in its mind regarding Pakistan, because if in its counter-terror operations, it somewhere feels that it will need Pakistan, and we have seen it in case of Zawahiri, we have seen it in case of Sharifullah. So they do have that. They would like to keep Pakistan a little warm. But I think India has made its position very clear that it is going to be a bilateral issue with no third-party mediation, and there is no comparison between the two countries' status as such.
Lieutenant General Nasimman, a slight climb down from Trump today. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's a futile exercise, but for the purpose of the exercise, I'll do it, where he says, not sure if I did, but I certainly helped bring about that mediation. Do you think as time passes, even the Trump administration will understand some of the nitty-gritties and sensitivities related to this entire Kashmir issue, which he's completely misunderstanding?
There are three odd issues which I'll mention on this. One is, Trump itself, you need to make a differentiation between what Mr. Trump says and what the administration says. There are two different things, actually speaking. You look at he and Vance on one side, Rubio on the other side. It conveys a lot of miscommunication happens in this. That is one thing that we need to keep in mind. Second thing is, I don't think India or Pakistan are going to take strategic decisions based on trade, though he mentioned it in his speech. But trade is subservient to the strategic importance, strategic aim, and strategic goals. So that is what every country does. So that is something, again, we need to take it with a large pinch of salt to say that, they are willing to do trade. And what kind of trade does Pakistan do with US anyway?
Exactly.
I mean, if you look at those details, it's minimal kind of trade that happens between them. And Pakistan can't export anything to US, actually speaking, with all the restrictions. So this is something which is made for the public. It is fine. To that extent, we need to accept it with that particular frame in mind. But the other thing that we need to keep in issue is what Mr. Panda mentioned, of equating India and Pakistan in the same kind of vein. That has been happening because I'm in the US today. Actually, I'm in US in the East Caribbean. But you see that a lot here. Actually, India and Pakistan being talked on the same terms. In fact, I'm going to meet a number of people in DC a little later, and I'm going to mention these 2-3 points that we have been discussing in this particular event to bring home the point that these are two different nations and you need to deal with them differently. And one is a country which is propagating terror, and that needs to be dealt with in that manner. So I think those are the things I think we need to keep in mind with Mr. Trump's this thing. Though he claimed 10 minutes before the ceasefire was announced, he tweeted and then everybody latched on to it. But the fact of the matter remains that I think India and Pakistan took that decision based on the Pakistan DGMO's call to our DGMO. And that is the way I think you need to see the ceasefire and not in any other frame of mind.
But if I may just press you a little bit on it, do you see India pressing US on this? Do you think India will register a protest or whatever is the best words to put it, and even use its position, some negotiation to say, no, we cannot accept this position from you?
By the way, it may not be done public. Mr. Panda is a great expert of this in his diplomacy. I'm sure it is being done in its own way in the back channels. It is being done. I'm sure it's not being made public. But I am sure our displeasure on this would have definitely been communicated to the US. Make no mistake about it.
Yes, Mr. Panda, you want to add to that?
Yeah, Shivani, I just wanted to say that there's always out of the public eye, there's a back channel diplomacy which is going on. Let me also tell you something that President Trump, his intentions are very noble. It's just that the execution is a little faulty, but his intentions are noble. But what he says about trade, linking trade with, announcing ceasefire, will do more trade than both countries. So these will be conveyed to the US side, or might have been already been conveyed. There are channels there. It is just that the administration and the White House briefing, I am given to understand, is not going on the way it usually is. I mean, I spent a little. And the second point I wanted to make, I mean, during my stint in the US, I was in San Francisco, Consul General there. Whenever I interacted with the media or interacted with any senators and congressmen, I was quite appalled about the lack of understanding of this strategic and global reality. For example, any statement equating India and Pakistan was always the flavor of the times. So we had to really put in that extra effort to tell them no. I mean, these are different. I mean, this is not a subtle difference; it's a major difference. So that now we are doing very clearly and openly. Dr. Jaishankar's statement today minces no words. I mean, on the trade, he says that there's negotiations, things have to be decided. And we have to do this messaging. We have a special comprehensive strategic partnership with the US. So we don't want that to be derailed. But anyway, having said that, but when things are not in our interest, this has to be conveyed, and that is why diplomats are there. Otherwise, we would all, our breed would lose its job. I mean,
well, diplomacy is difficult and it's done behind the scenes. Yes, Mr. Lieutenant General Bhatt, you want to come in?
What I would like to add is we have to agree to one thing, that one negative fallout of Pahalgam, apart from losing valuable lives, was that Pakistan for the last 10 years, which had gone out of the radar, the Indo-Pak hyphenation, which had really disappeared, is again trying to re-emerge. And here is where our diplomatic corps will have a major role to again deconflict. It's very difficult. And as far as trade goes and our trade deal with America goes, we should not link it with this. That is very important to us, and it has to be mutually beneficial between India and America. Pakistan should not be in the radar of what do we do in trade with USA.
Absolutely. All right. I have to leave it at that. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Certainly, a lot of pressure that India is now putting in calling out Pakistan's nuclear bluff, but also in ensuring that the world gets the message that India's strategic interests are above everything else, and they shouldn't try to dangle either any carrot or try to use any stick in trying to make India do anything against that. Well, amidst this India-Pakistan conflict, I also spoke earlier to Professor Vladimir Khanin, the head of Post-Soviet Conflicts Research Program at the Besa Center for Strategic Studies. He highlights the reluctance of the Western world to take on these violent Islamist forces, and also his take on Trump's recent policies. Why is there a reluctance still in the Western world to come together against fundamentalist, violent Islamist forces? Why do you think there's a reluctance still?
Why they do or why they don't?
Why is there a reluctance to come together against such forces?
I think that the only solution. If it's not looks like now, and Mr. Trump is trying, first of all, okay, he came to power the second term of his position in the White House, not to stop the wars, as he explained us, but to finish wars. According to him, he wants to finish wars that are unneeded, according to him, the United States, like war in Eastern Europe and war in the Middle East, in order to redirect diplomatic, military, economic, and other resources in their conflict with China. From this point of view, I believe that interests of Israel or countries like Azerbaijan and India, of course, can buy this idea. The question is whether the interest of New Delhi, of Jerusalem, of Baku, and Central Asian countries will be taken into account. According to Mr. Trump, this visit that is about to complete his visit in the Middle East. Meantime, he's talking about economic interests, but at the same time, a lot was said about radical Islamist regimes that should be moderated or removed from the political from the political camp. In terms, maybe at least in terms of their influence, and I guess that at the end of the day, nothing else is possible.
But it seems like economic concerns are dominating Donald Trump's policy right now.
I believe that, as usual, in the democratic country like India and Israel, on the same page, there are different approaches to understand that. Some of our political commentators and decision makers and politicians and journalists, they believe that there is like something hidden, a very complicated combination. The meaning of this combination we don't know. Others believe that, and I'm afraid I have to join them, that at the moment Mr. Trump is interested to solve his immediate problems, and his immediate problem that's in foreign policy. This is China, and in internal and domestic policy, first of all, how much money the average American household live in the supermarket. Right. From this point of view, his agreements with Saudi Arabia, with Qatar, and the United Emirates, on one hand, this huge multi-billion dollars investment in the American economy on one hand, and on the other hand, to ensure partners in the Middle East like Turkey and the Saudi Arabia to join American vision. That's his attempt. As right. well as his attempt to come to agreement, a diplomatic solution of the Iranian nuclear problem. We don't know whether it will work. Okay. Give us a few months or maybe a year, and then my answer will be more clear.
They have code-named this operation Operation Sindoor. The Indian Army, through Operation Sindoor, has hit 9 targets.
You try to target our bases, you try to target our capital, or you try to target our cities, we will hit you so hard that you will not be able to fly your machine.
News coming out that nervous Pakistan is seeming to wave the white flag.
This is what Manoj Gupta is bringing for us, this piece of information that Pakistan wants to de-escalate.
As we slip into evening on May 10, Donald Trump, US President, has now announced that India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire.
Donald Trump posting on Truth Social that both India and Pakistan have announced a ceasefire.
Co-powered by. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To the reports that were doing the rounds earlier about India hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which, remember, houses their nuclear weaponry as well. Now, the global nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, which is popularly known as the IAEA, has said that there has been no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan after the escalated military engagement with India. This is in response to a query on whether any nuclear incident or spill has been brought to the notice of the IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center. India had earlier denied hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which allegedly houses Pakistan's nukes. I go back to Siddhant on that story. Siddhant, all the wagging tongues finally put to rest?
Well, yes, Akanksha. It looks like after the statement from the nuclear watchdog, perhaps I think all this chatter and rumor around India hitting Kirana Hills, perhaps where Pakistan's nuclear arsenal have been kept. Perhaps the rumor and chatter will be put to an end, Akanksha. In fact, since 10th of May, there was chatter on social media platforms that India has hit Kirana Hills and there is a radioactive. There could be a possibility of a radioactive leak in that particular area. In fact, an Egyptian plane perhaps has landed near to the Kirana Hills. Perhaps it was assumed that that plane has been sent to see whether there is a leak of a radioactive substance to do the assessment. This plane has come, but now since the nuclear watchdog has said that no leakage has taken place in that particular area and perhaps has denied any reports of any nuclear site being hit by the Indian Armed Forces. In fact, Akanksha, on the very first day, Air Marshal Bharti also made it very clear that we don't know what is there in Kirana Hills, but we have not hit that site. So India made its position very clear, and now the international watchdog, nuclear watchdog, is also perhaps saying something on the similar lines.
And when the IAEA says that, this means that the matter has now been globally put to rest. Glad, Siddhant, that you mentioned what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti had to say, because let's play out his reaction when he was the first one to dismiss all of those rumors. Let's listen in to what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti said.
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday.
All right. I go back to Siddhant on that note. Siddhant, of course, it was peppered with a bit of sarcasm when he had responded to that query. But I think what's most important right now is to indicate that the IAEA, which is the global nuclear watchdog, when it steps in and declares that there has been no radioactive leak so far, that also lays to rest all of those reports that were doing the rounds, that perhaps there was a US intervention which was being sought, perhaps there was a Chinese intervention that was being sought, as you rightly highlighted, that there's been a lot of chatter ever since and panic on both sides of the border.
That's right, Akanksha. And in fact, there was also an attempt to project India in bad light, that India is not a responsible country. India has hit a very sensitive site in Pakistan, and there was an attempt on social media perhaps to frame India. When
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. And this Thursday edition is packed with a lot of developments around Operation Sindoor. The non-kinetic offensive continues post whatever was done with Turkey, or whatever Turkey did with Bharat. Despite Operation Dost in 2023, it decided to become Dost with Pakistan, and the Turkish drones came this way. A lot of questions were being asked about Bharat's collaboration with Turkey and their involvement even at ground zero at some of our civilian airports. Now, in a major setback for Turkey for helping Pakistan amid this conflict with Bharat, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, that is BCAS, has cancelled the security clearance of Turkish firm Celebi Aviation. This company is involved in ground operation for several airlines at the Indian airports. So I'm just going to quickly cut across to the note. This is the note, the official note, and this is the BCAS headquarters 2025 security clearance, and And this is the number: Bharat Sarkar, Government of India, Nagar Viman Mantralaya, Ministry of Civil Aviation. What is the order? Subject: revocation of security clearance in respect of Celebi Airport Services India Private Limited. And they say, sir, the security clearance in respect of, that is RO, Celebi Airport Services Private Limited under the category Ground Handling Agency was approved by DG BCAS Wide Letter 15/9/2022, Delhi. BCAS dated E219110 dated 21st of November 2022. In exercise of the power conferred upon DG BCAS, the security clearance in respect of Celebi Airport Aviation Services India Private Limited is hereby revoked with immediate effect in the interest of national security. The issues with the approval, this